decision making during changing times does not happen in isolation just in the boardrooms or just with the leaders or CXOs like yourselves. You have to also take your teams along with you. And in such times, the critical thing which a leader faces is basically when you communicate these uncertain times to your team, it's your job, to ensure that it doesn't create any anxiety unnecessarily or maybe some confusion. So as leaders, how do you deal with, boarding the team on with you in this agenda and in this process? So maybe how do you take your team along with you?
So if I may change this a little bit to say that decision making in uncertain times or disrupting times, where is the decision being made, right? So if every decision is being made in the boardroom or in the leadership team, then it does not get implemented in the right manner. It doesn't even reach especially for a consumer goods company, where you're looking at millions of consumers, thousands of retailers, hundreds of channel partners. Each and every person needs to understand what needs to be done. So therefore, decision making has to be decentralized as much as possible. So you have to have a culture where you are empowering, you are trusting, and then also you need to understand where you want to sort of pull the reins back in, right? So that very clear, close communication and also empowering decision making at the ground, because you're looking at competition which is so much more hyper compared to what it was 15, 20 years ago, right? And competition coming from everywhere, right? Uh, and I've now come back to India, and I'm now in an Indian company, right? Which is a legacy company trying to turn around, right? And now I'm facing competition from Chinese, Koreans, Indians, Europeans, Americans, everywhere, and new companies popping up all the time. And at this point in time, the shocks in terms of cost increases are massive. Okay, some because of the war, some because of general increase, memory shortage, etc., etc. So cost increases are going up to 25, 30%. Mobile phone prices have gone up 50%. Laptop prices have gone up 50%. TV prices are going to go up by at least 25% in the next 2 or 3 months. It's already going up. These price increases are not normal, right? Now, in such scenario, if every decision is coming from headquarters, right, you are in a state of absolute inaction, right? So you have to understand how much can you sort of give, but find mechanisms by which the person on the ground can take an action. Otherwise, by the time he wants, permission and approvals, it has gone. The boat has already sailed. Yeah. So I think that is another important aspect of where you make the decision and how quick are you in terms of that information flow back and forth.
So to my mind, I think one of the things that we look at, to add to what he was saying, is getting the teams to move beyond what their traditional KPIs were to more the business outcomes and understanding the purpose of why this is kind of being done. I think that's the big one which we kind of miss out, especially if it's coming on a top-down way. They see something happening, they don't understand why this is going on, and that leads to even more anxiety. Yeah. So I think the challenge that I see is making sure you have a right balance between what you want to communicate and not kind of reach it to a level where you're creating panic. And also getting the teams to really align with the purpose of what's being done and making sure that each of what they are doing is tied back to tangible business outcomes that are being there, so they realize why actions are being taken the way they are, and also give them potential paths that could be there to make sure that if there are changes happening, what could they do to kind of protect themselves from the change, because role changes, people moving across domains is a reality today which happens so frequently. I mean, in the GCC world, with the technology changes happening as rapidly as they are, we see that happening on a regular basis. And you have high-cost skills which are easily poached by a larger person who's coming in and setting up a large GCC here. And your easy pickings for kind of getting those, whether it's AI, cyber, those kind of skills just being kind of poached and taken out. So I think the challenge that you see is how do you make sure that you're able to hold the flock together, and it cannot be salary, it cannot be the stuff that you're looking at, but it is making sure that they have the purpose, they are bought into it and emotionally connected, and they feel empowered enough, to the point that you were making earlier, saying that they are also able to kind of contribute and they are the ones who are putting that up and getting that visibility, whether it's in boardrooms to senior management, and having that opportunity where their voice gets heard. So I think that becomes critical to kind of take it through.
Also, also I think we give too little credit to people a few levels below us in terms of thinking they can't take decision. Actually, they can take much better decisions. You know, I have worked in a multinational firm also in the past, where many times the decisions are taken, let's say, outside India. So trying to say that, okay, the senior most person will take the decision, actually, I have seen it firsthand that it becomes very, very counterproductive because the decisions are completely divorced from the reality. So as long as the vision is clear, you have given tools to people, and people's personal objectives and organizational objectives are aligned, then typically they will take much better decisions. I mean, structurally, the decision may come from someone higher up, but actually, it has to be formed basis of bottoms up approach. I mean, from the ground, when you get that feedback and then you are taking the decision and people are aligned, I think it's a much better model that way rather than saying that someone sitting somewhere will actually decide basis some imagined objective.
So I just wanted to say that decision still, somebody said, where is it? It's still at the end of the day that our call from a CEO to his core leadership really triggers that reaction to the crisis. We're talking about crisis. So it does still take place in that little circle. But the whole game is, the whole magic is, our whole mantra should be of that, the authenticity of those leaders, the courage they have of being transparent and really saying shit has happened and we are here. So allowing every stakeholder in the system, which is mid-manager, which is where the mess is really, giving them and the bottom line a full transparent view to your authentic scenario, A. And B, being able to contextualize the strategic stake, which is the 20%, and just give them a direction of travel. Allow the mid, and to your point, I've personally observed the mid manager, that is where the real anchoring happens. And what we do is we overlook them the most. We say the warriors, the shop floor, very important, the key senior leaders, very important, and they are just FIIs, but they make or break the scenarios. So giving them a direction of travel and trusting that they do understand that this is the strategic context. So as long as the outcome is directly proportional to maintaining that and saving energy and expenditures, I think you would still be able to navigate and float through the issue. But if you're not authentic, you're creating this fake scenario of saying, we will and we are doing something, I think you should just threadbare, we might restructure. We are trying to understand frameworks in which we can damage less. But you know what? We got to restructure. And in an M&A, which looks so progressive outside, we do press releases, we clap, we congratulate. There are umpteen workforces which are literally on the edge, not knowing, do they have a seat in the next story? So I really, really feel you got to be authentic, transparent. We've done multiple in our company in Solenis. And I think what we did right was the CEO would come to an absolute threadbare town hall and be very authentic in saying, this is what is happening. We may end up here, but we want to know that we value you for what you are. So please help us navigate, and let everybody is open to give me ideas on how. So you are telling your vulnerability, please express it loud as leaders and allow the mid-managers to do their job better.
To heads up and to talk to people becomes difficult these times. What we expect, we as asset management company as well as when we manage money, is that how are you sharper on the execution side? And it is very important. So when you look at companies, look at our own organizations, we see that these are times when you'll find inefficiency under the carpet and it comes out. And you start looking at every cost differently at the different point of time, because you have seen that these are times when you will start saying that, okay, this spends couldn't have done it, and why we are doing this. And these are times when you have a huge amount of insecurity about your own employees, for the careers and futures. And social media is very good into making multiple way of scaring the people out. I think my view is that, which I did yesterday, that how sharper are you in your communication to your one downs, and how are you percolating to town halls, and how can you reach out to the last guy. For us, the biggest challenge is also that we have almost 1 lakh distributors who distribute our products across. We have FMCG company by heart. So the idea is that how do I reach the last distributor sitting in Northeast, somebody sitting in the most tip of the South. I think it's all about technology is helping us, but I think you need to be real in terms of what you're communicating, because people judge you leaderships are judged by people by these tough times. And I think it's test for leaders now during these tough times. We think about other way around. Leaders think that is a skill set of down. I think if he does well, I do well. I think it's other way around. I think leadership test during these tough times is always looked at. So
Yeah, more frequent communication is mandatory, I would say. Rather than having once in a year town hall, I think we need to have, in terms of uncertainty, when there is a lot of uncertainty, there needs to be a lot more communication, more frequent and more continuous and consistent communication, I think becomes very important, which I try to do.
Explaining the purpose.
Yeah, explaining the
As you
purpose.
mentioned, if you're saying, okay, hiring freeze, that's a very common reaction in times like this. But if you don't explain why, then the middle management is just simply communicating, the top has told me hiring freeze, so we are doing hiring freeze. Nobody's convinced because there are certain divisions which are still doing well. Correct. So they question, why am I being subjected to hiring
powerful.
freeze? Right?
Thanks, so powerful. That thread nudges me on what exactly happened. So the Middle East scenario spoiled. We had industrial solution as one of our verticals. Solenis had it always, but Solenis took over Diversity Worldwide. Diversity, it's a new avenue. So investment. That was our workforce strategic planning. About a year and a half, we would invest these many people. And that recruitment begins. Now, obviously, they're not bringing in the monies. This is the investment stage, or they'll go through the cycle, process, orientation, learning. And there'll be a time when P&L will start showing up. But a knee-jerky reaction as this happens, freeze. Now, the communication that must go to the people who were the hiring managers, the real district managers, let's say, under which these teams were invested, and we said no more. They need to be told the P&L story of where really, and that is the...
Because then they will also own it.
Relate to it. Like, you're spending more than you're earning, your monthly out of pocket is becoming so much. I think that just brings another level of conviction and solidarity in understanding why somebody is being... So the why is it really powerful.
So CEO has to become a chief explaining officer.